Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be recommending some queer romance authors for the Amazing Readathon. Now the Amazing Readathon is a readathon that is taking place in the month of June. It is hosted by Brie from Four Paws and a Book and a whole bunch of amazing co-hosts, and one of the ways to get bonus points for this readathon in June is to read books by queer authors. With the caveat being, obviously, this is not intended to out anyone. These are authors who have publicly stated that they are part of the queer community. And because I have joined Team Romance, which is headed by Izzy and Heather, because of course I did, I decided just to put together a list of authors, of queer authors who write romance that I have read in the last couple of years that I've really enjoyed, and I'm just going to share a book or two that are my favorites. And that way, if you're not sure about queer authors in the romance genre, you can go to them. This list is not exhaustive, and I have probably missed a stack of people on here, and that was not my intention. I just tried to put this list together so that it could go out before the end of the month, and hopefully that is helpful to you. I will leave a link to the announcement video down below, so if you would like to join in with the readathon, you can. I'm a little bit nervous because long readathons and I do not always get along, and I'm going into a readathon next month and then the following month as well. So this could be interesting, but I'm really excited. So the first author I'm going to recommend, and this one is cheating a little bit. So I've broken this into categories of contemporary, darkish / crime / other, and then paranormal and sci-fi, and I've got a couple of historical authors on here as well. So the first one is definitely cheating because it probably sits more in fiction with a romantic subplot, but I do really like the romance in here and I like what it's exploring. And that is Akwaeke Emezi and You Made a Fool of Death with Her Beauty. Probably the biggest part of the story is our main character finding herself, but the romantic subplot in here, which is her falling for a much older man, I was just so deeply invested in the story. So Akwaeke Emezi is a fantastic writer. I should say I'm not going to give synopsises or things for books. I might just give 1 point or two because otherwise we'll be here forever. The next one is Chencia C. Higgins. I recently read Devon and Kris Plan a Wedding. This was recommended to me by Tracy and this book was fantastic. It is queer and just amazing. Another author is Alison Cochrun. She's written The Charm Offensive. She's written Kiss Her Once for Me, which I've also read, but I think The Charm Offensive slightly won out over Kiss Her Once for Me in my favorite category. This one is an romance and it is set on a reality dating show. Then we have Sierra Simone, who is just prolific and writes really intense romances. The book I'm going to recommend is Saint, which is one of my all-time favorites and is part of her Priest series. This is an story about one of the Bell brothers who has gone into a monastery for lots of reasons. This one does have some pretty heavy content warnings, so check it out before you dive into it, but an incredible book. Then we have Katrina Jackson, and one of my favorite books by Katrina Jackson is Pink Slip, which is part of the Spies That Loved Her series. It's great. This particular book is a polyamorous story, and Katrina Jackson's books are always just wonderful. They're usually short and very easy to get through. It would not be a me video if I don't mention Bauer, who is a queer author who writes a variety of contemporary romances as well as thriller romances. I'm recommending Gravity and the Rest of the Story. They're hockey romances and they're my all-time favorites, and these sit at the top of my favorites of hockey romance books as well. Then there is Alexis Hall, who writes in a variety of romance subgenres, from contemporary fiction to historical fiction to mystery historical fiction. He's got a huge back catalogue of books, but the book that I came to his work through is For Real, which is a contemporary romance that explores the dynamics of a dominant and submissive relationship between two men with a significant age gap, where the dominant is the younger partner who is learning how to be a dominant with his older partner. It's amazing. It is hands down my favorite of his books. Then we have Alexandria Bellefleur. I have read the Fiance Farce. That's the only book that I've read so far by this author, but I'm very intrigued. I do have a couple of other books by them on my TBR, so I'm looking forward to picking those up. There is Rebekah Weatherspoon, and I have two series that I absolutely love by Rebekah Weatherspoon. There is the Loose Ends series, which is Rafe and Xeni, and I haven't read Megan, but they're all part of that same universe, and also the Beards and Bondage series, which are phenomenal. They're great books. Rebekah Weatherspoon is a great writer. There is also Elia Winters. I read Hairpin Curves. I think actually Izzy may have recommended this one to me. It's a sapphic road trip romance. Great. Then there's Emily Rath. She writes the Jacksonville Ray series. It is a hockey romance series. These books are bricks, but they do read very quickly. So you may or may not want to read a brick during the readathon, but they are a great choice and they're really fun. There is Ashley Poston, and the first book by Ashley that I read was The 7 Year Slip. I absolutely loved this book so much. Her books do feature romance, but there's always some kind of other element, in this case, kind of a magical realism element. Loved it. And then Talia Hibbert, who is also incredible. She's written the Brown Sister series, which I love, but also the Ravenswood series. And my favorite in that series is That Kind of Guy, which was the first time I'd seen demisexual representation in a romance book. And I loved it. All right, then moving into authors who sort of write darker books or more crime-based books. You can't have a queer romance list without Katie Roberts. She writes in a lot of different genres. She has mafia romance, she has contemporary romance, she has the Wicked Villain series. I always bring out Learn My Lesson because that's my favorite. It's a polyamorous relationship. And also another poly relationship is Gifting Me to His Best Friend. They're super short, very easy to get to. But more recently, a lot of her works either fit into sort of that paranormal or monster romance category or into the darker category. So just be aware of that. But she does fit in sort of multiple romance areas because she's been writing for a very long time. And then also in this space, Cole McCade, who writes the Criminal Intention series, which is an ongoing serial story about two detectives who fall in love, but they are investigating some really, really dark crimes. Highly recommend the series. It's all on KU and often they're very short and you can speed through a stack of them. They're amazing. Then we come to paranormal and sci-fi romances. TJ Klune writes fantasy, paranormal, sci-fi stories. My recommendation is always the Green Creek series. It's my favorite, hands down. Then there is Maz Maddox, who also writes paranormal stories, most notably the Relic series, which is Dinosaur Shifters. They are bonkers and fun, also fairly short. There is R.M. Virtues, who has a stack of books, my favorite being Sing Me to Sleep, which is a sleep paralysis demon romance and is really cool. And then also Chase Verity. I came to their work through Deal with the Demon, like I think most people did, which is about a demon who turns up and becomes the house husband of a woman who has 2 kids and is super short, very sweet and just amazing. And then there an author that I've only read 1 book by, but I'm hoping to dive back into this series and explore it because I started in the wrong place, is Ryder O'Malley, who has the Men of Vanguard series, which is a queer superhero series. I think I started at book 3, which is probably not a good spot to start, so I need to go back and read book 1. And then I've got a couple of historical recommendations. There is Cat Sebastian, I meant to say Cat Sebastian, who is just incredible. I'm going to put We Could Be So Good up here as my recommendation because that one was just different. It's set in the 50s from memory and is really interesting. And then also another author I've read recently is E.E. Ottoman, and I read the book A Matter of Disagreement, which is just a super short historical story about academic rivals and was just really lovely. So that is my list of recommendations. Hopefully there are some new authors on there for you, although if you've been on my channel for a while, you're probably going, Steph, you talk about these books all the time. And spoiler alert, they're going to be in some of them are going to be in another video this week. Can't help it if they work for multiple recommendation lists. In the comments, if you have other authors that you would like to recommend that are queer romance authors that I haven't included, feel free to include them down below because having a great list is amazing. But of course, we're not here to out anyone, so only authors who have publicly stated that they are queer or belong to the queer community, please, because outing people is not cool. I totally forgot an author, Anna Szabo, incredible author. I would recommend Cinnamon Roll or Rookie Mistake, which they wrote with LA Wit. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that wherever you're on the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Bye everyone.